There's a few things that I would chafe at somebody telling me something like this, but there's a few things that I'm going to tell you that if I've convinced you that it might be a good idea to write a book, there's going to be some things that might immediately suggest themselves to you. And I'm going to suggest to you that they're bad ideas. They're not things that you should do. And if somebody said this to me, just me being contrary, I might sort of say, well, who are they? Who are they to tell me not to do this? I'm not like I'm not your boss. I'm not your parent. I don't have any authority over you. But these are just suggestions that if any of these things pop into your head and you think, oh, I think I might want to do that, I'd hold the horses and really think it through. And these are things that certainly you could do at some point in the future. Probably, I'd say wait till you've built up some skills and maybe written multiple books and you kind of know a little bit more what you're doing. And then at that point, if you sort of say, yeah, I'm going to do this thing that John said was a bad idea, power to you. And at that point, you'll be able to dance around the laser beams and maybe you can do justice with this and you can use one of these ideas and do something really fabulous with it. But I'd just say that think it through carefully if you think you're going to do these things. And so the first thing that seems like a good idea, but it isn't, is to write about your role-playing game campaign. And so a lot of people have been in a long-standing role-playing game. They have a great time. They really have fun. They think the campaign's just wonderful. And they think this would make a great book. If we just wrote up this campaign as a book, everybody's going to love it. And there are book series like the Dragonlance series, like the Rift Wars series, like Malazan, like Wild Cards that came out of role-playing groups. Each of those had a connection to kind of role-playing groups, and there was people involved in role-playing, and that sort of fed into each of those series, and they were very successful. Campaigns to me, role-playing campaigns are like dreams, and they're really interesting to the people who've experienced them, but when you talk about them, it's just unbelievably boring. And I've seen I was at a party one time and one of my players was talking to another person who played Dungeons and Dragons, and she just lit up and started talking excitedly about our campaign and telling him kind of funny things and different elements in it. And I just saw his eyes glazed over and he just got a pained expression on his face as he kind of politely listened to her enthusiastically telling him about elements of our campaign. It's like an inside joke, right? And you're trying to convey to somebody why it's funny to the group, why everybody thinks this inside joke is so hilarious. But even with the context, even once you've explained it to somebody, it's just not as interesting if you weren't a part of it. Uh, Beyond this, that most campaigns just aren't interesting, and I don't think it'll end up being a good book if you write it up. There's a question of ownership of ideas from role-playing sessions. So even if you were the dungeon master and you ran the session, is it fair for you to then have characters in your book that are based on the player characters that your players ran, right? If you're using little bits of dialogue or characteristics of these characteristics they created, is that okay for you to use? And I can't even offer an opinion on the legality of it, but it might annoy your friends if you wrote up your campaign and they felt that they had an ownership stake in the campaign and that's not right for you to turn it into a book. And so that gets a little bit convoluted if everybody involved is on the same page or not about doing it. What I would say is a good idea with your role playing game campaign, instead of using it and trying to write it up as a novel, is to pull elements from the campaign and you can work them into your stories. And so I was running a Dungeon World campaign for some friends a year or two ago. And in this Dungeon World campaign, it was kind of a Norse fantasy that they were going through. And there was an incompetent Valkyrie who kept coming and giving them quests, and they couldn't complete the quests. When they kind of try to do the things she told them to do, things weren't where they were supposed to be, and she wasn't giving them accurate information. And then when they met her the next time, she'd gaslight them about what she'd asked them to do, and she'd really get aggressive with them about not having done something she'd never told them. And it was just this element to the campaign that she really got under my player skin. They just hated this Valkyrie, and I thought it was kind of this funny thing. This person who was kind of this mythical creature, like a Valkyrie from Norse mythology, that was just incompetent. And every time she arrived, she'd fall off whatever steed she was riding, and then she'd show up on a different steed each time. One time it'd be a winged horse, one time it'd be a giant budgie, and kind of it would change what she was riding. And she was just kind of a fun character in isolation. And so one of my books, Friendship Magician, it had nothing to do with kind of a Norse campaign, a Norse mythology, but I put this incompetent Valkyrie into that book, and she was my creation. I came up with her in the campaign, and there wasn't any ambiguity about an ownership stake. But this idea of this person who's trying to give quests and is just really terrible at it and doing a really bad job made it into the book. And I think that she was quite well fleshed out. And as an element of the book, I think she was a really fun part of the book that I'd kind of developed in this role playing session that we'd done in this role playing campaign. And so things like that, I'd say, are totally fair. And you should use ideas like that, but just don't try to write down your campaign like a history and turn it into a novel that way.